through the house. So if your hallways are more narrow than that, we have an energy restriction. If your hallways are much wider than that, we might have an area where energy can stagnate. So if you picture the room that a toddler on a big wheel will take up, that's about the space you want moving through your house all the time, because you want movement. Feng Shui itself, the words are wind and water. Both need movement. Both need that dynamic activity to get through the home or the space, whatever it is. So it's kind of a neat way to think about it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about all the things my kid could break on a big wheel.
Yeah, that's the magical part, is that nothing gets broken. There is no, I mean, that's maybe good. Not in our houses, but typically there isn't actually a 3-year-old on a big wheel. But that's about the space. And if you can visualize that, you can visualize, and it's interesting because most people, one of the things that I've found is that people that get into Feng Shui innately are already good at it in a lot of ways. Because I think we all do have a sense of, ooh, that doesn't go there. And maybe we can't say it doesn't go there because the 5-element theory, blah, blah, blah. But we feel like, oh, that chair was better in the other place. And we don't really have the why. But I think a lot of people are have those elements. And so most people that have that, they can really.
Yeah, hold on. We took a break because you're breaking up. You're freezing up all the time.
Oh.
Yeah, she's freezing up a lot.
Well, I can see her. That's weird.
Yeah.
You look perfect for me, my bog.
Yeah, she was freezing.
We're having some massive wind.
Yeah, and that's what's going on. So we'll just go with it, okay?
We'll just go with it.
Yeah.
And if you let me know too, like, then I can fill in for when it smooths out.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask about 5-element theory next.
Ugh. It's not that fun.
What do you want to talk about next?
Stand by.
Not that. Yin and Yang.
Well, Dr. Cassio's in the middle of a typhoon right now, so that's why you may be not getting it as smoothly as possible. But we want to talk now about yin and yang and how the balance of those opposites can be utilized in your house.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. I think yin and yang is something we all know. At least we have some experience with yin and yang, if nothing else, at least that little symbol with the black and the white dovetailing into each other. But if you think about the home, you want a nice balance of yin items and movement and feeling, and you want a balance with the yang. And you can picture places that are very, very strong yang places. They usually have very tall ceilings, very sharp angles, very bright, often near a lot of, a very typical yang concern in a home is being right next to a big highway. We often see sharp angles, hard surfaces, lots of white or high white high ceilings.
My house is very yang.
Yeah, you've got a lot of yang, and the proportion is you want a house that's probably about 60% yang and 40% yin. You don't actually want it 50-50 because you want that. A house is inherently a closed box. And so you want activity, you want movement, you want new, you want change to some degree. So a light, bright, gigantic, high ceilinged, hard furniture, no drapes kind of environment is going to be very yang. And often what we find is people, so you're also looking at the person, a person that has more yang tendencies is going to be drawn to a yang environment, right? The weather here is phenomenal. And the yin being the opposite, yin being like drapes, kind of a lower ceiling, more of a, like a man cave can sometimes look more like a yin space. You're going to have softer materials, lower ceilings. Often you see more antiques or things of the past in a yin environment. Darker colors, books. places that people want to kind of curl up and read a book or curl up and have a cup of tea are going to have typically more yin power to it. And again, you know, there's ways to balance that. And most people would find that when there's a nice balance is when they're at their most comfortable. And we're going to talk more about balance because it brings me to the Bagua Map, which we referenced a little bit before. Do you have your Bagua?
I don't have it in my hand, no. I don't know where that is.
I got it. I can try to hold it up a little bit.
Good.
I'm going to show. Go ahead. Is that good?
Good.
So this is a Bagua Map, and this comes from Jamie Barrett's Feng Shui. This book, my first Feng Shui book, and I think I've read 50 of them since. It's the one I pick up when I want to talk about Feng Shui, or during a consultation. I have this one with me. She's good. It's just good, and it's. I mean, now it's old, but she's written it in a way that it's applicable no matter what you're addressing. And this map is something I think that if the people that are interested could utilize, it brings us to the main topics of the main things that come up for Feng Shui, what people's questions are, which we referenced a little bit a couple weeks back. Mm-hmm. And we could go there if that's what your questions are. But
okay, well, so I wanted to talk like some of the main things that people really want as far as like to remedy in their life or to support in their life is the back wall, which we talked about, which is love and relationships, and then fame
and reputation is the middle back,
and then wealth is the back left.
Yeah, wealth, abundance, right, back left. And this is, remember, just to put in the caveat in case people didn't hear the other one, this is Tibetan. This is the Tibetan form of Feng Shui, the more Buddhist base coming out versus Chinese, which we referenced before, which does more directional, what's east, west, north, south. This is more based on the elements of the Bagua, not so much the cardinal directions.
Right. And also how you enter the house or how you enter a room sets up the way that Bagua is organized.
Exactly. So you take this Bagua and you manifest it in front of you in whatever capacity. A lot of times you can find transparencies, and you would put it over the blueprint of the home, and then you put it over the entire land that the house is on. You always start with the land, and you start with the acreage or whatever you've got, and then you go to the house itself using the Bagua in the exact same way. And then you do each room using the door that you utilize the most when entering that room as the threshold for the Bagua. And so sometimes in a Bagua, in a session, you might use the Bagua in every room and then in certain areas of the room. For example, there's a wonderful picture, and I'll try to put my finger on it, about how Jamie Barrett utilizes it even for the top of the desk. You know what I mean? You can use this. You can use the Bagua in any basic foundational footprint, whether it's the top of a desk or a closet, or one of the things I do with a lot of my clients is the desktop on the computer.
I'm really glad you can't see the top of my desk right now.
Yeah, and it's funny because, you know, with doing Feng Shui, sometimes I feel an extra layer. I can go to a place where I feel an extra layer of guilt when I've got clutter, because it's like, wait a minute, I got to walk the walk. But, you know, my 7 and 4-year-old are getting pretty good at clearing the surface clutter. They're like, ooh, we can't leave that here. She'll throw it out.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, it helps.
My 4-year-old, when I try to throw things out or donate them, will often go into the bag and be like, no, Mama, we need this.
It's important. It's important. There's something that definitely there's an age where that they go through of hoarding, which I think is just natural.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just show one more picture that I wanted to do with Jamie. Gives a lot of these Bagua maps, again, all oriented to the front door. But as you can see in this picture down here, she then does it to the door of these rooms.
Yes.
And I just think that sometimes is a little bit easy conceptually to understand how to utilize the the Bagua. And the Bagua is so pretty. It's easy to Google, and they've all got colors associated with them and different themes. And, you know, you can look at the one sort of square that you're most interested in. And kind of what I wanted to hit on today is how the squares sort of interconnect. Because what I find in my Feng Shui consultations is people will pick on 1 to 4 things that they want to focus on. And almost always those squares, those Baguas, are somehow reliant on each other.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because after our last talk about this, I really looked at my house again as far as the land. And I realized that on the land, in my relationship Bagua, I had a compost heap. And then in the house, in my house, when you walk in, the relationship section is the master bedroom. But if you break it down into the corner of the relationship Bagua that is has that relationship double.
The back right of the back right.
That's where the dog bed is. And so it's like, well, I guess that makes sense why.
Maybe there's some power to that.
Yeah, right. And so I got rid of the compost heap. I had a composter that you could, roast, and I donated it, put it on the street, and I was like, this is free. I didn't even empty it. I was like, this is free for anybody who wants it.
You already got some compost.
I ate all my egg, but I ate all my egg.
That's good. And then I haven't done anything about the dog bed yet. But
yeah, one thing at a time. Change begets change.
And then the other thing that I wanted to since we have a guest, what do you do about all of the clutter from the? No, you may not. What do you do with all the clutter from toys? When you have like a little like corporeal typhoon in the house that has Legos everywhere, and
Well, I think one of the key things, and it brings us back to a Feng Shui principle, which is everything must have a space that it belongs. Everything has a place to be put away. So nothing has to be out in order to be accessible. And then I think that the fact that everything can get put away means that there is a place physically for things to go, which is very helpful, particularly when it comes to tiny little plastic stuff that's everywhere. And then it's not so much Feng Shui. I think it's clutter control, but I think it's trying to engage my kids to not get overly bogged down with stuff. And whether or not it works, I'll let you know in 20 years. But what I've done so far is we will dump out we have these little bins. We got them at Target or, one of those, they slide into a bookshelf.
I love them.
Yeah, we have those bins. We have a bin for each different kind of toy. And what we'll do periodically is we'll dump an entire bin out on the coffee table, and then we'll figure out what we want to keep and what we want to donate. And we have a couple of areas where we can donate where the girls feel like they're giving it to a kid who would like it. Yeah. And so we do that periodically. I don't let any, there's certainly areas I need to work on, but I try not to let any area overwhelm me. And it's a little bit of Feng Shui, but it's also a little bit of parenting. So, the end is unknown at this point because they're pretty good right now, but they're 4 and 7.
Right.
Yeah. But I do practice with them the idea of releasing, of getting rid of, because I think it's something certainly I've seen in my clients and in my patient base, both with Feng Shui and naturopathic medicine, that if you have an inability to let go, it does hold on. That holding on does take hold of our health and does hold on. And we do see dis-ease in the body, the mind, or the spirit from that.
Yeah. Especially we talked last time about constipation with that.
Yeah. It's huge. Constipation is a huge thing that so often one component that's remedyable is in the house in Feng Shui. Absolutely. Yeah. Holding it all. And we also see it often in for my pediatric population, I see it a lot with holding breath. Yeah. The patients where the little kids will have to hold their breath until they get their way. It's a control component.
Oh.
Yeah, but what often happens is if they've got less stuff in their room, like there's, again, we look at the same idea with constipation. If there's less things out, we're holding on to less, there's less breath holding. I actually have 2 pediatric patients at this point that's basically the major change we started with. And because I don't want to get in there and give a lot of junk. These kids are tiny. They're get their food from, they get their medicine from food, I don't want to give them a whole bunch of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, it works.
Good.
Yeah. I mean, it's a start. It's one piece of the puzzle, but it's been a fantastic starting point.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because if you think about, if you apply that to adults and adult things that we, have that are not necessarily adult toys. I was going to say, like, gotta clean out your adult toys, but like the things that we have that we like to do, whether it's craft supplies or
books. You nodded about books one of the other times, and books is a huge thing. Educational, like, there's the many of us, we go to conferences, maybe 2, 3 a year. We get these huge binders that we are absolutely attached to for 3 days at a time. And then we take them home and they remind us of our wisdom. They remind us of how hard we work or how much we paid to get there or the fun time we had. But do we
never open them again?
Right? So it's interesting to see what we hold on to, but that is one that is a fairly universal.
And I think that another one could be cosmetics.
Yeah, or beauty supplies. Yeah. For sure. I think cosmetics, I see less of that because I think a lot of the people that I end up working with are stricter about the don't hold on to makeup after 2 years, or I think it's supposed to be 6 months, but who really does that? Unless you've had a recent infection, you've got something that's pretty old in there.
Right.
For the most part, yeah, it's true. Beauty products, I see a lot. Everybody's got a couple things that it's harder to get rid of. And I want to nod to something I mentioned to you just this morning. I had 2 patients this morning. Oddly enough, we'd already scheduled this, knew what we were going to talk about to some degree. And this morning, both, I had two appointments. Both of them, I'm also having a little bit of company. This is mine. Both of them nodded to feeling that they could get rid of things when they had company, when they had somebody there with them. They were both, and of course they didn't, it's just one of those, those cosmic things where you get 4 patients the same day that all have the same cough, whatever it is. But they both made a note of how when they were by themselves, they kept it. But when they had help, even if it was somebody just standing there, they were able to release things that they otherwise had more difficulty. And I think that's it just seems like a nugget about the human condition.
Well, it is. And it's because I always think that, people can get all sorts of like massage chairs or massage whatever, but it never works as well as if someone is actually doing it, because there's an energetic exchange. And so I think that that's a big piece of health in a lot of ways, because we do have energetic connections to each other that aren't necessarily going to come from technology. Right.
Yeah, it's true. And I think it would be nice to have sort of a global nod to humanity and to that. It would be nice to be like, oh, you know what? Maybe I don't need a robot to read my kids' stories at night. Maybe I should do it.
Right. Well, did you see the World Health Organization said that children under 4, like 4 and below, should have 1 hour of screen time a day? Which I'm like, whoa, my kid gets more than that, right? And I'm really pretty good about how much he gets, but still that's relatively low compared to what I was even doing. And under a year, they should have none.
Yeah, I've heard that.
But and then it's like, well, how do you keep your sanity as a parent then?
Yeah. I think my screen time makes me a weirdo. So it's interesting. It is hard. It's an easy crutch to lean on. But and I'm gonna bring it back around to the Feng Shui, because all of these electronic devices emit, and it's hard to get. I'm not completely on the bandwagon of all this electromagnetic activity, don't let it be in your bedroom and da 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 da. But I will tell you, one of the primary care MDs that I worked with read something, was absolutely moved about unplugging the wireless in the house before bed every night. And I will share with you, I did not do this, but I shared patients with him and heard time and time again that problem, difficulty sleeping, waking in the night, sleep was markedly improved. Mm-hmm. And I also have to say that I don't think any of those people kept up with it. I don't know quite. It's like when you do yoga, you feel so much better, but why aren't we always doing yoga then? Like it does.
It's so interesting to think. I had a conversation yesterday with someone about, I feel so good when we exercise, and yet it's one of those things like self-care goes right out the window. As soon as you get stressed or something else comes up, like we make ourselves our last priority.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's not that difficult to turn off wireless at night.
No, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. But for some reason, I didn't even do it.
Oh yeah, exactly. Right?
I didn't even do it. I didn't even try.
And I saw something recently, actually, that this is going to be butchered, but the megahertz, or the frequency at which the EMF from wireless and other electronic devices, actually your DNA recognizes it kind of like an antenna, so it can cause DNA damage.
I heard something similar to that too, and then more of a genomic atmosphere, like in a genomic topic. I can't speak to it, but I do feel inherently like we don't have our minds wrapped around what all of this electromagnetic activity is providing for our body.
Because especially if you look at it, like if we are all energy, and any physicist would tell you, from introductory physics, that we are all energy. There's no line between energy and matter, and even though we don't necessarily understand the way that it works, it's a fact, right? Yeah. And so, would you need some Feng Shui medicine on your knee? Maybe you should go clean your room. What do you think? That's not your knee. That's your elbow. He's the doctor of a doc. He's the son of a doctor. So we gotta make sure he gets his anatomy correct. But you have to think that energy is going to affect everything, and just because we don't understand how doesn't necessarily mean that it's not happening.
Absolutely. And
so I think that in the next few years, we'll really see how to either measure it, or, it's going to be, I think that the way that we're looking at it currently from the scientific model isn't going to help us understand. It's going to be like a consciousness shift, because what we're doing is so, right-brained, left-brained. It's so left-brained, and, science isn't going to be able to determine the way that intuition works, or, the way that Feng Shui works necessarily. They're going to be able to see, well, it does, but we don't know exactly how, because it's beyond their systems of measurement. But there
isn't going to be a double-blind placebo-controlled trial that tells us anything about this stuff. But I do think that the EMFs is a big topic. It's something that I actually did not know anything about until Feng Shui. I think there was a nod to it, I think, in medical school, but it certainly wasn't anything that I wrapped my mind around. And they also call it, in Feng Shui, one of the other components that they refer to are called ley lines. And it's, again, it would be, it takes the Feng Shui to another level. And I think more today we wanted to focus on the approachability. But because we're going in this avenue, there is some serious depth to Feng Shui and the overall health and wellness that can be achieved by using this as one tool in addition to others. And I think that there's the ley lines is water, because if we think of everything is energy, ley lines is water. So we think about the sewer system, we think about pipes, then we also have to think about simple things like irrigation and French drains. All of these things move water around, and the traditionally Feng Shui, if there's water movement, a ley line, a positive ley line under where we sleep, it's going to promote dis-ease in the body. And I don't have that two linked together. I don't have my Western medicine mind and my Feng Shui practitioner able to make that link specifically, but it's an absolute in Feng Shui that if there are ley lines under the bed, you're going to see ease, disease in the body. Ultimately, I think over time, but I look forward to when we can know this and rely on maybe not double-blind placebo-controlled trials, but something where we can start to really get some facts that we can lean on about it.
Because you can see a connection with TVs in the bedroom.
Yes.
And so I've heard that you should cover up, or like with a, you know, some sort of curtain your TV if it's in the bedroom at night, because it can cause disruption. But we know now that that screen, and people who fall asleep or can't fall asleep with a screen, because the blue light changes our melatonin and our ability to go into a deep restful sleep because of all of our devices. And so you can get your blue blocker glasses, etc. But I think that that's an interesting way where the connection can be made, because you shouldn't have, you know, if you look at any kind of sleep hygiene from the most conventional, you know, to the most esoteric, they'll say, you know, take the electronics out of your bedroom.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with, I wanted to talk a little bit about colors.
Okay.
For different areas, as well as, because the way that I looked at it when I read that book that you shared was I really was very concrete in the colors. And so my entryway was all blues and blacks for career. And then different areas of the house, I have a lot of reds in the fame. And then like there's purples and golds in like the wealth and the abundance. And I was very concrete about it. And so I guess when you and I did our consultation, there was some of that, but you put a lot less stress on that.
Yeah,
it's one piece.
Yeah, the color is one piece. And I was just trying to get back to the Bagua Map so folks could see the colors that we're referring to. But essentially the back wall are your warm colors. And it's, yeah, I think color is important. Color is so personal that if you don't want red in your kitchen, you just don't want it. And so there's other ways to do it. Color is, if you think about the toolbox that you can use, I see it, my love. If you think about the toolbox that you can use with Feng Shui, if you think about all of the different ways, the different components that you can tap into in order to help remedy a specific area on the map, color is just one of many. And I think color is important, but for me, in my home, I get into it. I'm into the colors too. But color is one thing where you might have it absolutely no. Like somebody's bedroom is blues and greens, and that's the way it is. Mm-hmm. I think what it goes to is how we can handle and incorporate that individuality.
Yeah, because I couldn't really get a lot of pinks in the bedroom. I'm good with career, right? And I wanted to move into career a little bit. Maybe we'll take a break and we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about certain areas of the house and different things, so we can talk about that back wall and color, and then the front. And so we'll be right back after a short break where you can figure out how to get in touch with Naturopathic MD.
Great, thank you. We're gonna close a window.
Okay. Well, it looks like my producer might have gone out for a smoke or something. So we'll talk a little bit about career when Dr. Cascio gets back.
Okay.
All right, so we both just got back. I'm not sure if you guys got any music during that special break, but all right, so let's talk a little bit about remedies and where places touch, and things that people can apply to their house besides clearing clutter and closing bathroom doors. As far as what would you say that the top things for people would be?
Well, I think that, as we touched on the last podcast that we talked about, was people often have questions about the back wall, meaning back right when you walk in your front door, love and relationships, back center, which is fame and reputation, and then back left, which is wealth and abundance. And I think those all end up being hot topics. And so if you think about what's remediable, and as we nodded before, and without, sort of the boring part, but first you got to take away the stuff that you don't like. First, reduce. Reduce is absolutely where you need to start. And I think I
had to get rid of the partner in my love and relationship corner master bedroom.
And out.
That was a big clearing.
Yeah, that's a big clearing. And we don't all have to be quite so drastic, but you gotta do what you gotta do. And so I think that getting rid of and paring down, letting the energy move through those spaces. Again, imagining the toddler on a big wheel. I think if you can do that, then I feel like you've done the first step. I think after that, you can think about the colors. I mean, the colors are fun. The colors are, for my mind anyway, I think that the colors are a lot of fun. And I think about, the back right, love and relationship. We're talking about sort of reds, but also more pinks, more magentas, more even a pale pink. It doesn't have to be all like bright red, like cherry red, the whole back of the house, but that we don't need to be extremists or at all incendiary in this respect. But I think that when you think of fire, you want the warmth of fire in love, in fame, and in creating abundance. You want that, that Agni, however you want to term it. But I think if you look just at the colors, the love and relationship is going to have a softness to it. Rose, pinks, even some shimmering things, where the middle third would be love, fame and reputation, which is going to be more incendiary. You want fire. You want like the boiling up. You want red. You want orange. You want even some gold in there. And then they all kind of, there's a nice, blending of each Bagua next to the one next to it. They have a relationship in where they sit. And then, of course, on the other side of fame and reputation, you have wealth and abundance, which also brings in that gold. But then a traditional color in that corner would also be like a deep purple, almost with hints of orange or blue into them. You also, some people, there is an element of money. So people always tend to think of greens also in that back corner. Though and that's where it becomes very individual. But it is not a traditional, that isn't a traditional color I would go to. I would more point people, if we're just talking about colors, to the golds and the purples, the rich, the opulence, that, quality of abundance.
Well, what about things like, as far as decorations go, not just colors, but also things that you associate with wealth or with love, reputation? Yeah,
so definitely. So things that, of course, we are as individuals, that makes me think of this, da, 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 da. But also not too many things that bring us backwards. So part of that specifically, well, I guess in all of them, more specifically love and relationship and fame and reputation, you want to make sure that you're creating space for thoughts to move forward. One of the questions I ask a lot of my patients is, when you find yourself worrying, are your thoughts going into the future, or are they going back behind you? Are they going to memories? And I think creating a space where you're allowing the new to come in, you're creating the unknown, you're inviting change, which is inherently scary. I think that's an element you want in love and relationship. Even if you're in a great relationship, you don't want stagnation. Even if you found the love of your life, you want to keep it, as people would say, new and interesting, right? So the same with reputation. It has that dynamic human quality that we need to incorporate change. We need something new. It doesn't have to be a ground changing or earth shattering like your change, in the corner. And the same is true with wealth, unless it's a situation where there was a lot of wealth, there isn't now. then there might be a nod where you can have that effort and energy that's going forward turn back a little. Again, what we are looking though for a better, inherently, all of us are looking for a better future. So that's a piece of it too. Yeah.
One thing that we did in my bedroom when we did a consultation on it was we talked a lot about the bedside tables.
Yeah, that's huge. You know, Tisha Morris, the woman that I took a class with, who is the Earth Home School of Feng Shui, phenomenal. And one of the things she would say about the bedside tables, you can walk in and know exactly what's going on in the relationship. I mean, it's like embarrassingly obvious, really. And so, yeah, bedside tables, that's a thing. That's like a full on, you can trust your gut kind of a situation on that. And what you want to shoot for with that is you want to shoot for balance. That's where we're going with that. You want balance. You want similarities. You want them to look like they go together. We don't have to have a match set. That's not realistic, and for some people, not how they want their house to look. But I think having balance, having them like go together, having them be of equal height is important.
That was a big thing that was wrong with mine.
Yeah, that's a big deal. You want them to be, and you also want them to be a utilizable height from the bed. Some people's bedside tables are so low that every time they pull the covers up, they spill their water. Right? And so you want them also to be a functionally appropriate height. So we want to see similarity in size, similarity in height. You want them to look like they go together. You want them to be able to sit next to each other and be a unit versus one really high, somebody using a chair. You want, in an ideal situation, you also have lamps on or near them. Some people have them hanging off the wall, but they're balanced with the bedside table. If there are 2 lamps on either side of the bed, which are getting less and less frequent because people are using more reading on iPads and iPhones and things like that, so there's less of a need for a light. For my patient practice base and my client practice base, I find that I'm discouraging a lot of the blue light reading at night. And so I'm asking people to go back to the book and put a lamp back on your bedside table. And again, those lamps, what I really often encourage is a matched pair. And though it doesn't have to be, again, same rule as the bedside table, similar height. You don't want one that the light shines up and the other light shines down. You want them to be equal wattage for the bulbs. You want similarity. You want the 2 things to be a pair.
And that's a big thing for the relationship, Bagua, anyway. You want pairs of things, right? Even if it's not where the master bedroom is, like mine happened to be. Right. And what your coincidence of having your master bedroom in your love and relationship corner is great, but it's fixable if it isn't. This is just, it's never something that's insurmountable. Right. So I think that pairs of things are a good idea so I want to sort of make a nod to the front of the house. So part of the Bagua is balance. A main thing of the Bagua is balance. So part of it is that back wall. Love, fame, money, right? If you go from right to left. In the front, you've got wisdom, career, and helpful people from left to right. And if you think about the Bagua, you can kind of think of it on a teeter-totter. So if you put a lot of focus, all your focus maybe in the back left on money, right? You put a lot of focus on that. You've also got to make a diagonal and put equal focus on helpful people or travel. Those are the opposite corners, and it keeps a sense of balance or levelness to the Bagua. And so, when you think about pairs, you don't really want pairs opposite from the opposite corner of the wealth and abundance. You don't really want pairs of things in helpful people, because you want more than 2 helpful people in your world. And if you have 2 helpful people, you don't want them to be a pair. So you want diversity. You want groups of pictures of groups of people, travel magazines. That's where you'd want to put the things that are going to bring in all different kinds of points of view and new knowledge, and that
community that, for me, one of the things that I focused on moving here was I wanted to develop a sense of community. And that was huge for my angels, helpful people, that front right area of the house. And that's where my front door is, which brings us to something, the idea of where your front door is, which was wonderful because I wanted that primary mouth of chi, that front door, to be in a Bagua that I knew I needed to focus on. And there's a wonderful marriage between helpful people, a sense of community, travel, and money, right? And they're the opposite. They're the two corners. Mm-hmm. So it's the Bagua, we're just sort of dusting the surface of how cool it is.
Mm-hmm. So then, because people, when they talk about, there's that back wall, which is like money and reputation and love. And then I think that part of the place that I've always concentrated significantly on was the career.
Yeah.
And so like people want, like if you want a new job, or if you want, obviously there's, like that wealth and reputation, or that reputation and career are opposite each other.
Right, exactly. They're both centers, which inherently hold less weight than a corner. But yes, you've got to have your career being the center in the front. And that's where a lot of people have their front doors, is the center front. And so I think having a nod to the reputation and the fame when you're building the career area is important. It's important, again, to that front and back of the teeter-totter of the Bagua.
So what's opposite relationships?
Love and relationship is wisdom. It's wisdom and self-awareness. Yeah. So if you don't know who you are, you're not going to do so hot in a relationship.
Right. So with wisdom, I'd often put like lots of books in my library and like things like that there.
And it's often, it's the mountain. The mountain is the element to think about. It's having traversed something. It's knowledge-based. So it's right there to the left of career, where right to the right of helpful people, and right to the left is, knowledge-based wisdom. And so you need that community, or that blending of those three Baguas for balance, if the center one. And it's the same in the back with the fame and the reputation. You need the balance of love and money in order to have a good reputation or have that abundant sense of fame.
So what are things that you would use to charge the self-awareness section?
So it's a little bit harder. One, you clear, right? You clear it out. Self-awareness, it's a water element. So I got my little notes here. It's a water element. So you want movement, and you want to be, water is really helpful. So emotions, it's an emotional, very emotional based Bagua. It's that sort of vibe of knowing where you fit knowing how you fit into the world. So for some people, it can be a picture of them in a group. For some people, it's mirrors. For some people, it's the area where they would keep their journals. I have a number of people who do particularly creative. One is all literary, so he keeps his poetry in that element of the house. And I have another woman who made that her art studio, actually. And it's not always the best for the creativity component unless what you creative is so ultimately personal. And it's also making the best of a floor plan. There's certainly certain gemstones that go, you can get crazy esoteric about it. I think that for me, when I look at wisdom and self-awareness, that's where I did exactly what you did. I put a lot of my books there. I put, when I used to keep conference material, that's where it went. And it's that sort of, it's interesting because I can think of specific examples where I have that. It's a sense of self. It's that ownership of who you are and what space you take up. I did have a client who moved her bedroom to the room that was there because she wanted to sort of self-actualize. She wanted that was, I think, basically her main focus in having the Feng Shui consultation. And we used mirrors, we used brighter lights, and we got rid of anything that took her backwards. So we took away childhood things. There's sort of again, like in love and relationship, it's an element where we need things to forward focus.
That's the area of the house I'm in right now, actually.
And your walls are blue, which is one of the colors.
Is that good? I think it's like blue and white, right?
Yeah, blue and white. There's also grays, like it's a lot of slate, like bluey gray things, books. I remember living in a house where I thought about putting a mural of a mountain on the side of one of the walls there, but
it's funny because I have my art studios right over there. Like if you actually could see this room,
yes,
it's right. But like I have my art studio over there, and I'm actually painting a mountain, so maybe it's not all bad.
It's not all bad. It's great. Yeah, that's wonderful.
And now you talked about creativity because the section of it, right, where it's creativity in children,
right?
The Baguas, right?
Yep, it's between love. So it's on the right side. So it's between love and helpful people in travel. So it's the middle right.
Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of blues and grays too, isn't it?
Not necessarily. More that's going to be our colorful, our chalkboards, our children's painting, our rainbows. I would say that would be one of the color-wise, that's going to be the most colorful, or certainly the most accepting of wild colorfulness. Yeah, that would be the place to put the crazy art or hang something that doesn't fit with anything else, because that you want the crazy there, really. That creativity, that childlike need or expression of whatever's building on the inside. There's no critic in that Bagua. That Bagua is like, wow, that's where you put the loop rug you made in camp that you want to, what I mean? Whatever it is, like that's where you put the crazy stuff.
Neat. And then family. We didn't really talk a whole lot about family, right?
So family would be exactly across, right? So that would be, middle left. And it's not just family, it's also community. So and I've used that word with angels and helpful people in the front right, but this is more of an absolute circle around you as an individual. So versus, it's more like a lot of people have it as their church community or their community in faith, or certain organizations where they're a part of very actively and very physically. And that again, it also delves into family. So people can say, well, why is there a Bagua for family and another one for children? It's more about the extended family, more about the people that would circle around you versus if the that sort of 2.5 kids and a dog thing still exists, that would be more on the creativity side.
Okay.
Yeah, it's different. It's, in my opinion, it's the Bagua square that needs to be renamed. I'll work on that.
What would you call it?
I would probably call it like the integration, as far as how you integrate with the world. I would probably use something, I'll think about it, I'll come up with something better, but something along the lines of, your people, like where do you come from? That kind, there's an element in that Bagua that's a little bit more, that sort of, I don't know, je ne sais quoi, that like nostalgia, that sort of
like roots.
Yeah, roots. That's good.
Isn't it wood?
Well, yeah, basically the wood is, it's definitely wood. It's also east, so it's new, so it's spring. But yeah, it's wood. It is wood.
Because it's interesting to think about the difference between like helpful people and angels, right? Which may be people that come and help and then go.
Right. They don't necessarily, and travel isn't a permanent situation.
Yeah, and then the people that, like, you and I are family.
Right.
We're not related by blood, right? And so that would be like your community, like your people, your tribe, maybe.
Yeah. Excellent.
Well, so we only have a few seconds left. Thank you, Dr. Anna Kate Cassio, for joining us today in your typhoon.
Yeah, I'm sorry if the connection was weird. We definitely got probably 3 inches of rain just now.
Well, that's good. I'm glad it's definitely tried to keep, you kept your wireless at least, right?
At least.
So maybe we should do this again. Maybe we can talk about art and how the way that you look at art can have huge impacts, as well as some other stuff. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. I'm going to be on vacation for the next couple of weeks. So I'll see you in May. This has been the Bad Girl's Guide to Living Well. companion site to naturopathicmd.com, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Bye.
Bye.